I made this stack of gentle, creamy clay cleansing bars in about 10 minutes, with no fancy equipment and just 7 ingredients. I initially called them facial cleansing bars, but they also make amazing shampoo bars and body wash bars, so they're brilliant for travel, gifting, or if you just don't have much room in your shower. I'm going to share my creamy cleansing bar for face, hair, body, etc. Formulation for free. So let's get started. We'll begin by weighing out the ingredients for the dry phase. We're going to mix up a 300-gram batch a day, which is what this is, so 5 60-gram bars. The very first thing you'll want to do is put on a tight-fitting respirator and a pair of nitrile gloves. You need a fitted respirator because as soon as you open up the first ingredient, it will make a beeline for your nose and your mouth when you inhale, and that is incredibly unpleasant. That first ingredient is the one responsible for most of the cleansing, bubbly goodness. It's very gentle and creates luscious, luxurious lather. Weigh out 147 grams of finely powdered Sodium Cocoyl Isethionate, which I will call SCI from here on out because that's quite the mouthful. If your SCI is not finely powdered, you can use it in this formula, but you need to turn it into a fine powder first by running it through your DIY-only coffee grinder. Up next, you'll need 45 grams of cornstarch, or if you're in the UK, corn flour. I know cornstarch is not a very exciting ingredient, but it is inexpensive and easy to get. This ingredient does one of the jobs that water does in a liquid cleanser. It dilutes the surfactants, making the cleanser milder and also cheaper to make. But of course, since we're making a solid bar, we can't use water, so we're using a solid ingredient that's fairly bland. You could use a different silky smooth starch like tapioca or arrowroot if you wanted to, but you will probably have to adjust the formulation a bit to get the wet-dry balance right, and I will explain how to do that later. The last ingredient in the dry phase is 15 grams of creamy, soft, white kaolin clay. Up next, we'll weigh out the ingredients in the wet phase. This formula includes 2 liquid surfactants. You'll need 30 grams of Cocamidopropyl Betaine and 27 grams of Caprylyl Glucoside. These are both gentle, natural surfactants. If you need substitutions for them or anything else in this formulation, please read the free partner blog post linked in the description box below. I always include lots of substitution information in the partner blog posts. To add a bit of richness to the bars so they're not too cleansing, you'll need 15 grams of a liquid oil. I used fractionated coconut oil this time, but in the past I've used oils like sunflower and apricot kernel. Don't worry about this ingredient too much, just use a relatively inexpensive liquid carrier oil that you have that sounds like a nice thing to put in a facial cleansing bar. The last ingredient you'll need is 4.5 grams of Optiphen Plus, which is our broad spectrum preservative. Because it's a little acidic, it helps the pH of these bars come out to a skin and hair friendly pH of 5.5-ish when made as written. With all of our ingredients weighed out, we're ready to turn them into bubbly bars. Combine the dry powders in a good-sized mixing bowl and stir. Once the powders are relatively uniform, make a well in the center, pour in all the liquid ingredients, and then give everything a stir with a spoon. At this point, everything is going to seem way too dry, and that's actually a good sign. If the mixture doesn't seem too dry when you first start combining the phases, you will end up with a sticky, gloppy mess after a bit more stirring. Once you're having a hard time making progress with the spoon, switch to mixing with your gloved hands. Mix, knead, and mash until you have a smooth, workable dough that's more interested in sticking to itself than everything else. If your mixture is crumbly and too dry, add a couple more drops of Cocamidopropyl Betaine or plain distilled water and work those in. If your mixture is sticky and too wet, work in a little bit more cornstarch or clay. The dough can be too wet or too dry if you made pretty much any change, including just not using exactly the same brands of ingredients I did, so don't worry if you have to make some slight adjustments. Just be sure to weigh all of your additions and take careful notes so you don't have to fuss with it every single time you make the formulation. Once you've got a lovely dough, it's time to shape it into bars. I've made 300 grams of dough, so I'll begin by dividing it into 5 60-gram portions. This dough is very workable, so you can press it into a cavity mold, use a press, or simply hand shape the bars, which is what I'm going to do. If you're at the point in your sudsy facial shampoo body wash bar making journey where you'd like to graduate from following formulations like mine and start creating your own, please check out my shampoo bar workshop. In it, I teach you how to formulate rock-hard shampoo bars for any hair type from the ground up. You'll learn how to choose ingredients, how to put them together into a shampoo bar that suits your hair, and how to troubleshoot, adjust, and refine your formulations until they're perfect. There's a link to it in the description box below if you'd like to learn more and sign up. Once you've finished shaping the bars, you can leave them plain if you like, but if you want to fancy them up a bit, you can use a soap stamp like this little bee or this wee heart, or anything else non-porous, washable, and kind of with an interesting shape that you've got kicking around your house, like these spoons. If it doesn't turn out well, you can always smush it up and start over. You can use these bars to wash your face, your hair, and your body, but not yet. They still need to age for 3 to 5 days. But why? Well, I did a whole video on that, so click here to learn why you shouldn't use your bubbly cleansing bars immediately unless you like sudsy slop, I suppose. Happy making!